So, far future Emily jumping in here to just say that I filmed the rest of these clips last summer. So, it is currently February 2025. Filmed these, as I said, a while ago, summer of 2024. I love reading pirate books in the summer, so that's what we're gonna do, and that's what I did. But I realized going back over clips that I never filmed the last clip talking about Amy's Eyes, and so we're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna film that last clip and we're gonna get this out much later than intended, but you know, for some of y'all it is, you know, now summer, so for some of y'all this will be super timely, and maybe for some of y'all it's winter and you're like, why are you posting a Pirates video in the winter? Just, you know, roll with it for me. And I still wanted to go ahead and get this out, and I didn't want to wait for summer, summer at least where I am. I didn't want to wait for summer again to post this, so I'm just going to post it, and I'm sure I'll make another Pirates video in the summer because, as I said, I love to do that. So let's just get into the video. We'll talk about some Pirates. I'll come back at the end to wrap up Amy's Eyes, and then we'll go from there. All right, cool. Hi, hey, hello, how's it going? It's Emily, and today we're gonna be reading some pirate books. So for me, it's summer where I am, and for me, fantasy books in the summer usually involve pirates, ships, adventures on the high seas. This is what I love to read during the hot months, and so that's what we're gonna read today. And I've got one bonus review of a book I've already read, so we'll talk about that in just a sec. I will also introduce and give initial thoughts for the book I'm currently reading, give a bit of extra information on some plans for this vlog, but let's start with Vengeance of the Pirate Queen. I'll try not to get glare. This is by Tricia Levenseller. This is a book that follows the two books that are in the Daughter of the Pirate King series, duology by Tricia Levenseller. So this is set in the same world, is a standalone, and takes place after the events of that duology. So would recommend reading that duology first to get some context for the characters. So this is Serenda on the cover here, and we're following our main character Serenda, who works with Alosa, who's the main character from that duology. So again, the events of the duology have happened and she's living her best pirate life. Serenda works for her and is basically an assassin for her, and so she actually at the beginning is tasked with going to find some lost, there was a ship basically that was lost, and so she's trying to figure out what's going on, get some information, see if she can find those people, bring them back. All sorts of politics going on here. It was super fun, and I think I liked the duology more. I just remember being a little bit more engrossed and a little bit more just anxious to read it. I still did really enjoy this one. There was one problem with this being a summer book though, and that is that the adventures that Serenda and her crew go on are to go north to the cold parts of this world, which occasionally happens in our pirate book. I should have included by the fact that this came out in November, and maybe that was done for a reason. But if you're looking for a winter pirate fantasy, this could be a good option. The duology definitely takes place in warmer climates and feels more like a summer fantasy duology, but this one feels more like a winter one. So, you know, mistakes were made, but it was definitely a lot of fun. I like our main character, Serenda. The romantic parts of this I could take or leave, but I loved their adventures and loved her figuring out the mystery of what's going on. So, would recommend. So I'm currently reading Saint by Adrienne Young. So this is another standalone book in a series that Adrienne Young, a duology that Adrienne Young has written, so kind of similar vibes in that sense. This is in the Fable, or set in the world of the Fable duology, and we're following a couple of different characters. We're following Saint, and we're also following the daughter of Holland, who's like this pirate, notorious and kind of evil you know, trader and like, controls trade and the pirate scene. And she is trying to escape. She has stolen a priceless gem, and she's trying to escape and head to Saros in the Narrows. And there's actually a handy map. Will it even? So at the top there, you see the city of Saros in the Narrows. So she's trying to get passage to Saros to basically escape her past and escape her mother, who is responsible for her dad's death. And anyway, so she's trying to get away. She comes across Elias or Saint in the process of going to Saros on a ship. She's basically working on a ship to get passage. And yeah, so she encounters our other main character, and he is trying to get a license to trade. And basically, it's so expensive that you really kind of have to trade illegally in order to get the money and the capital you need to get a trading license to trade legally. So that's what he's trying to do. He's kind of secretly having a ship built in the background as part of this plan. So anyway, that's kind of what he's doing at the moment. That's all I really know and where we're at so far. I'm 75 or so pages in, and so I'm having a good time. I do enjoy Adrienne Young's writing. It's just such a fun world to be in, and I really enjoyed the other standalone that was also set in this world as well. So very excited about this. I'm also reading a nonfiction that I'll talk more about in a future clip that is a biography of the wife of Captain Kidd, and Sarah is her name, and yeah, so very intrigued. Matt actually has a biography of Captain Kidd, and I thought it would be fun. He had started to read it. I don't know if he's finished it or set it aside, but I thought it would be fun for him to read that one, and then for me to read about Sarah, and then just kind of exchange thoughts. And you know, if we wanted to read the other book, we could as well. So I'm reading that as kind of a nonfiction about pirates. And there are a couple of others that I want to read, so I'll talk about those later. But one other book that I only have physically, there's not an audiobook for this one, so it's kind of been one that I've had in the background that I've wanted to read last summer, didn't quite get to, so I'm hoping to get to it this summer. And that is Amy's Eyes. I'll talk about it in a future clip. But I also want to read a fantasy romance that is centering pirates, so I have a few to choose from, and we'll read one of those. So anyway, yeah, I will check in hopefully when I am further into Saint. Tomorrow's a commute day, so I might get far enough into Saint. I might even finish it over the next couple of days while I'm commuting and not really have a chance to check in. So it's entirely possible I will read this whole thing before I'm able to check in. But anyway, we'll talk later. So confession time. I thought I had filmed another clip finishing Saint, but I don't think I did, and we have a lot to catch up on. So I did in fact finish Saint while commuting over the next couple of days from that last clip that was filmed a good minute ago. So I'll give a quick review of this and then catch up. So I love this one. It is just so great to be back in this world. This world is so fun. I love Adrienne Young's writing. I've read 4 books set in this world, and I've also read her 2 standalones that she's come out with recently, and I've just adored everything that I've read from her. It's just such an immersive world. It's just so much fun to follow these characters, and it was so entertaining. It was so entertaining. And I have also read a fantasy romance that centers pirates. It's called The Audience and the Phantom Knight. I'll put an image here because I'm also blanking on the author's name. This one was entertaining. It's not great, but it was entertaining. Definitely a lot of cliched writing, but I had fun with it. It's not anything to write home about. It follows our main character her brother, basically, there's this, it's called the Phantom Knight is the ship, and the captain is kind of cursed and cursed to the sea god, basically, and her brother basically promised him 25 years of service to spare his life. And so, he's kind of caught up in this magic with this ship, or kind of caught up in this agreement. And, the captain is also kind of caught up in that whole situation. And her brother ends up running away and going home. And the captain of the ship is going after him for him to complete his 25 years. Or was it 25 years? Whatever. Anyway, the amount of time that he had committed to serve. And so the captain comes looking for our main character's brother, ends up finding her instead in his search for her brother, and she ends up volunteering to continue her brother's time, basically. And so, she's off on this ship going on a bunch of different adventures. Of course, they start falling for each other. It was entertaining. It was entertaining if you want just summer pirate dark fantasy romance. It wasn't even that particularly dark from what I recall, but if you just want a nice, fun pirate fantasy romance with a couple dark elements in there, it was fun. So I have also read a nonfiction for this book, and it was super interesting. Would highly recommend if you're interested in the history of piracy. And so I read the biography of Sarah Kidd, who was married to Captain Kidd, and she actually was married a couple times before she was married to Captain Kidd. Her family had come over and were pretty well off and had arranged her first marriage to, I think he was a merchant. And she actually was doing financially pretty well for herself as well, because she ran a shop. She was also a merchant, ran a shop to sell luxury goods. She was only able to do so because her family had slaves. And she ran this shop. Her husband, there was an accident on a boat. He was by himself. It was a small thing that he was on by himself to get to shore for one of his business arrangements or something. There was some sort of accident or some sort of thing went wrong, and he ended up drowning. And she married again relatively quickly out of convenience, because again, at the time, women had absolutely no protection outside of the protection that their husbands could provide them. Financial protection, legal protection, any of it. It all came from their husbands. And so she needed to marry quickly to be able to get any protection. And she had to fight to kind of keep what she was able to have from her first marriage. So that was a whole legal battle that she was facing. Her second husband just kind of suddenly dies, and she had met Captain Kidd at this point, and they kind of had a friendship. He just kind of suddenly dies, and she marries Captain Kidd 2 days later. There were a bunch of political things happening around the time, and so a couple of people who had been caught up in these political goings-on were actually getting hanged. And so 2 days after her second husband dies, she and Captain Kidd go to view this hanging and then get married. Wild, just wild. And so she, they have some kids. She's kind of caught up in his life and the things that he went through. She has to kind of help him deal with. And it was just a super interesting story of just the dualities present at the time, both forces against her, but also things that she was taking advantage of, privileges that she had that she was taking advantage of that didn't seem to register or didn't seem to cross her mind in how she dealt with people, particularly people who either were slaves or indentured servants. And anyway, it was just a fascinating story, and just the legal issues. So I think the book did a good job tying it to just larger issues that women were facing at the time. It's a pretty short book, and there are only so many records that exist of her life and things that we can kind of actually see based on the record. So some of it you kind of have to draw some conclusions or say, you know, our best guess is that this was probably what happened or what she was doing at the time. But anyway, it was super interesting though. And yeah, so that is what I've read so far. I'm also 130 pages into Amy's Eyes. I also did briefly mention this one. This one, the cover. I love the cover, and it's just such a summer cover. And so in this one was kindly sent to me by Precious, and I, again, meant to read it last summer, and it's been a minute since she so kindly sent it to me, and I haven't read it yet. I feel so bad, but I'm trying to fix that. And so I'm 130 pages in. We're following Amy, and she's at this kind of orphanage house, and she has this doll with her, and the doll is kind of coming to life, and the doll is like a doll of a captain, a ship captain, and so this doll is kind of coming to life and actually becomes a captain, and you know, goes off to do this and promises that he's going to come back for her. And I don't know how much to actually say beyond that, because the synopsis is pretty short. But it's about her adventures, I say adventures, her in this house, and there are some, not everyone who is taking care of the kids at this house are good. And so she's dealing with that. She is basically just the captain, even as a doll, is just kind of her companion. And she's trying to deal with hiding the fact that he's coming to life and growing, and eventually this becomes impossible. But he's, yeah, as I said, able to kind of go off and become the captain of a ship, and so you also follow some of his adventures on the ship. The writing is very kind of an old school style of writing and speaking for the characters, but it's definitely been fun to follow so far. And you know, it is that kind of old school writing that kind of puts you at a distance from things, which isn't always my favorite, but I'm still having a great time with this so far. So I will continue reading this one. As I mentioned in the other clip, I think there's not an audiobook of this one, so it just is going to be a bit slower going than some books have been, but that is totally fine. So I will come back once I've read more of Amy's Eyes. So some enjoyable reads. I'm back to wrap this up. So I'll just briefly talk about Amy's Eyes by Richard Kennedy, which again was so kindly sent to me by Precious. Thank you so much. That was so kind. And I did have fun with this one. This is just a charming, fun adventure story. I don't think I was as pulled to read this one as I have been for some middle grade adventures for some reason. There's nothing I can do to point my finger to why, or that it is at all the book's fault. Just, I don't know, for some reason I just wasn't as pulled to it, but it was just a nice, fun kid sea adventure story that was just pretty unique, and unique writing style that I enjoyed. I think this would just be a super fun one to just read aloud to your kids or to your young loved ones who maybe just want a fun adventure story. I think this would be a super fun one to, you know, read out loud and just have a good time with them doing that. But anyway, I just at least wanted to give at least, even if it's not much in terms of final thoughts, because again, this was from a hot minute ago. So, you know, don't mind that there are fewer thoughts maybe than there would be when I normally wrap something up. But I at least just wanted to give my final impressions and, you know, my thoughts after having read it a while ago, which is that, you know, again, super fun, would recommend for kids who just are wanting an adventure story, particularly in the summer if that's, you know, something you feel would be fun in the summer. But yeah, thanks for hanging out and reading some pirate books with me. Sorry this took so long to get out, but as I said, I'm sure there'll be another one coming out. There are always so many pirate stories on deck that I love reading in the summer. So another one to come, and hopefully that one won't take this long to get out. But is what it is. Anyway, again, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more bookish content. I'll leave more information below, including my Instagram and how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.